In a quiet corner of life, a story unfolded that should never have happened, let alone led to the consequences it brought. It all began on an ordinary day, when the surrounding silence felt deceptive, as if foreshadowing a storm. The woman returned home after her weekly trip to the supermarket, tired but content that she had managed all her errands. Her son, Santiago, was absent, likely still at a soccer match with friends. Confident she was alone, the woman decided to work out right in the living room. The physical exercise filled her with energy, helping to relieve accumulated stress. After finishing her workout, she headed to the bathroom for a long, relaxing shower. Leaving the door ajar, she didn't expect anyone to disturb her privacy. Her favorite music played at full volume, creating an atmosphere that seemed to belong only to her. The hot water, streaming over her skin, relaxed her muscles and soothed her body. However, a sudden shiver ran down her spine, a strange sensation, as if someone was watching her. She glanced at the door but noticed nothing unusual. "It's just my imagination," she thought, dismissing the uneasy feeling and continuing to enjoy the flowing water. Stepping out of the shower, the woman wrapped herself in a towel that barely covered her body. No longer concerned, she calmly walked towards her room, savoring the freedom that the feeling of solitude offered. Passing the living room, she noticed the front door was slightly ajar. For a moment, she wondered if she herself hadn't closed it tightly when she returned from the store. Deciding not to dwell on it, she continued to her bedroom, feeling relaxed after the shower and the warmth of the steam. Once in her room, she slowly dropped the towel, allowing the light streaming through the window to caress her naked body. The woman moved naturally, choosing clothes from her closet, not thinking about whether to put on underwear. At that moment, the strange sensation from the bathroom returned, but this time it was much stronger. It felt as though someone was intensely watching her. Turning towards the window, she saw Santiago. His gaze traced every curve of her body with astonishment, as if he were transfixed. Time seemed to stop. Her heart pounded wildly, and an unpleasant heat rose from her chest to her face. Santiago did not look away, as if caught in a moment over which neither of them had control. He didn't move, his gaze seemingly absorbing every detail as he stood by the window. The woman tried to quickly cover herself, but it was too late. Santiago had seen too much. Finally, he awkwardly stepped back, as if the shock of what had happened held him in a daze. But the damage was done. This moment changed everything, becoming the beginning of something that should never have happened. Without closing the curtain, the woman froze in silence. Her mind was filled with questions she dared not answer or even voice. Why did she feel something was wrong, even though she didn't want to believe it? "He's your son," she repeated to herself again and again, trying to suppress the whirlwind of emotions that frightened her. Quickly dressing, she tried to regain control of the situation, but a lingering unease remained within her. As she descended the stairs, she couldn't shake the thought, was he watching me then too? In the living room, she saw Santiago, sitting and trying to act normal. She approached him and, trying not to address what had happened directly, asked, "Why didn't you say you were home?" Santiago nervously looked up. "The music was too loud," he replied with a strained smile. "And what were you doing by the window?" she insisted, trying to remain calm. "Just checking if it was raining," he quickly answered, though his tone sounded unconvincing. Before she could say anything, Jorge returned, interrupting the conversation with his usual enthusiasm. "I've planned a vacation for the three of us. It'll be a great opportunity to relax and spend time together." This news caught the woman off guard, and though she tried to feign joy, her thoughts were focused on what had happened just minutes ago. She felt that something inside her had changed forever. The days dragged slowly after that uncomfortable encounter. Despite all her efforts to act normal, the woman couldn't help but notice that Santiago had changed. His gestures became more attentive, and his glances, once casual, now seemed to study her every move. He seemed bolder, but covertly, always on the verge of crossing an invisible line. The woman pretended not to notice anything, but internally, it all caused her discomfort, not in a negative way, but she felt things she shouldn't have felt. She decided to never think about that day again. She constantly convinced herself that it was better to leave everything in the past. This must not happen again, she quietly told herself one evening, looking in the mirror. However, she wasn't entirely sure. Sometimes she even caught herself joking about the situation, as if trying to get rid of it that way. Since then, every time she showered, she locked the door and made sure Santiago wasn't around. But even in those moments of precaution, as he passed by her, he would give her a mysterious smile that made her uneasy. Is it what I think it is? She asked herself, desperately trying to get those thoughts out of her head. What would happen next in this tense and unpredictable situation? What secrets and dangers lurked behind this ominous silence? Don't miss the continuation of this gripping story, full of unexpected twists and emotional experiences. The long-awaited day of departure arrived. As they packed their bags, everyone tried to portray a happy and ordinary family. The protagonist wore a short skirt, which seemed perfect for a comfortable trip. As she helped Santiago load luggage into the car, an intimate item of clothing awkwardly fell out of her bag. Santiago noticed it first, and despite her attempts to hide her embarrassment, his gaze lingered on the garment for a moment longer than it should have. The protagonist hastily picked it up, feeling a blush creep up her face. Jorge, oblivious to what was happening, continued giving last-minute directions for the route. This fleeting incident left a palpable tension, unspoken but lingering in the air as they left the house. During the drive to their destination, the car's interior was filled with an atmosphere of joy and carefree abandon. The trio sang loudly, laughing at off-key notes and relishing the feeling of escaping their daily routine. "Thank you for this, Jorge," the protagonist said sincerely with a smile, "we needed this." "Yes, Dad, I think this will do us all good," Santiago enthusiastically agreed. "You'll love this place, just wait," Jorge replied. However, the protagonist couldn't help but notice Santiago's furtive glances at her legs. He tried to hide it, but his attention was evident. She, in turn, tried to act nonchalant, laughing and commenting on what was happening, as if nothing had occurred, but internally she remained on guard, making sure Jorge would not suspect anything amiss, something even she herself couldn't fully comprehend. Each time Santiago cast a glance her way, the protagonist felt a discomfort she tried to ignore, focusing on maintaining the family atmosphere. Upon arriving at the hotel, everyone was struck by the splendor of the place. It was an impressive complex with a huge, crystal-clear pool surrounded by palm trees, a restaurant with terraces overlooking the sea, and luxuriously decorated rooms. The view was simply breathtaking, and the fresh sea air enveloped them in a dreamlike atmosphere. Jorge enthusiastically showed them every corner, while the protagonist and Santiago could barely conceal their admiration for the beauty of the place. Reaching their room, they found only 2 beds, one for the protagonist and Jorge, and the other for Santiago. "Great! This way we'll be even closer," Jorge remarked, unaware of the tension already palpable between Santiago and his mother. They decided to unpack and get ready for a day at the pool. Opening her suitcase, the protagonist saw the swimsuit she had packed. It was the same outfit she had dropped a few days ago, and for a moment, she hesitated whether to wear it. "It'll be fine," she thought, remembering Santiago's gaze that time. But in the end, she discarded the idea. "He's my son," she told herself, trying to push away any thoughts that shouldn't be there. As she got ready, she couldn't help but notice how her fitness routine had transformed her figure. She felt good, but at the same time, she was aware that it could be misinterpreted. Stepping out of the room, the protagonist immediately heard a compliment from Jorge, her husband. Santiago, however, looked her over carefully. He approached her with a slight smile and in a tone meant to sound casual, said, "You look beautiful, Mom." His comment, though seemingly innocent, made her nervous, and she tried to hide it with a short laugh. "Thank you, dear," she replied, and to avoid his gaze, which lingered on her longer than it should, she shifted her attention to something else. The day passed with laughter and swimming in the pool. But something inside the protagonist kept bothering her. Jorge, though attentive and loving, didn't satisfy certain emotional needs that even she herself couldn't describe. There were moments when, looking at Santiago, she caught herself thinking about things she knew were wrong. No, don't think about it, she told herself, trying to focus on her family. At sunset, Santiago suggested they talk alone on the terrace as the sun dipped below the horizon. He approached her with a serious expression. "Mom, there's something I can't get out of my head," he said, staring intently at her. Before she could ask what was wrong, he reached out and gently touched her face. "I can't stop thinking about that moment, about what I saw," and all she could do was offer a false, nervous smile. "Santiago, it was just an accident." "Don't think about it," she said, though deep down she knew his words resonated more than they should have. "And you never thought about it?" he pressed. Her eyes met his. "No, of course not," she replied, though a part of her knew that wasn't entirely true. In her mind, she told herself that this shouldn't continue, that it was a dangerous path, but something in his gaze captivated her. A heavy silence hung between them, as if neither could find the words to end the awkward moment. Finally, she said in a firm but uncertain tone, "Santiago, we are mother and son. This must not happen again. It was a mistake." He lowered his gaze, but there was no remorse in his posture. Instead, it seemed he was carefully analyzing her every word, as if searching for a hint of doubt in her voice. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered, but the weight of his apology seemed insignificant compared to the intensity of what had transpired. That evening, Jorge left on business with colleagues, giving Santiago and her a chance to spend time alone. They decided to watch a movie to fill the void. An atmosphere of calm hung in the air, yet beneath it, a hidden tension was palpable. At one point, as she heartily laughed at a comedic scene on screen, Santiago unexpectedly leaned in and touched her lips with his. She froze in confusion, unsure how to react to such an act. "Santiago, this is wrong," she whispered, but in response, he only lowered his gaze and mumbled, "I'm sorry, Mom, I don't understand what's happening to me." The rest of the night passed in a heavy silence. Despite her attempts to act as if nothing had happened, she realized that something significant between them had changed forever. The next day, they both tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. Jorge's presence allowed any tension or discomfort between her and Santiago to be hidden behind a flawless facade. The morning was spent exploring the hotel grounds, familiarizing themselves with the amenities, and discussing plans for the day. In the afternoon, Jorge suggested they grab a bite to eat outside the room to get a better feel for the area and sample local cuisine. "Believe me, you'll love the little restaurant I spotted near the entrance," he enthusiastically declared, starting to get ready. Jorge finished preparing first and decided to wait for them at the room's exit. She was still choosing an outfit when she suddenly felt a sharp shortage of time. Deciding to freshen up, she headed to the bathroom for a quick shower. Streams of water ran down her body as she tried to clear her mind of the thoughts that had been haunting her for the past few days. Suddenly, she heard a soft knock on the bathroom door. "Mom, I need to get something from the bathroom," Santiago said in a calm voice, which held something she couldn't quite place. Her heart pounded in her chest. She hesitated for a moment before allowing him to enter. Wrapped in a towel that barely covered her body, she made no effort to fully adjust it. When Santiago entered, their eyes met immediately. His explanation about needing something from the bathroom was just a pretext, his true intention was clear in his gaze. He slowly approached, and she stood motionless, as if paralyzed. "Mom," he whispered, before leaning in and touching her lips with his. It was a fleeting kiss, but filled with a force she couldn't ignore. Her mind desperately screamed that it was wrong, but her body seemed to succumb to something she couldn't control. The towel covering her slipped to the floor, and for a moment, everything else ceased to exist. Gathering her strength, she pulled away, picked up the towel, and wrapped herself in it again. Jorge was somewhere nearby. She made every effort to maintain a semblance of propriety. No one suspected anything, and she understood that she needed to put an end to this before the situation spiraled completely out of control. Finally, she made a decision. "Santiago, we need help. This is wrong," she told him one afternoon when Jorge was absent. She suggested they see a professional who could help them understand what was happening and, most importantly, stop it. He agreed, and together they began a process they kept in the strictest confidence. Jorge never found out what had happened.